Did you know that our plant leaves are always yellow? We just usually don't notice it because there's all that green pigment in the way. Welcome back, casual gardeners. Yellow leaves are just a fact of life in a garden and something gardeners are always wondering about. This is part 2 in our frequently asked questions series. And this video is all about answering the question, why are my plants' leaves yellow? To honor that subject, I am wearing my beautiful yellow shirt. Yellow leaves can be caused by too much or too little water, poor nutrient access, root damage, pests and diseases, plant stress, or sometimes yellow leaves can happen for no serious reason at all. What all of these causes have in common is something interfering with the production of chlorophyll, the green pigment in our plant's leaves. And when the chlorophyll is gone, it's revealing other colors and pigments that are just naturally there underneath. So when we see yellow leaves in our garden, that is a sign that we need to investigate and see if we can figure out what the cause is and whether or not we should be concerned. In the last video, we talked about how overwatering is the #1 mistake that most gardeners make. So it's not a big surprise that overwatering is also going to be one of the primary causes for yellow leaves in our gardens. When we overwater, we exclude the oxygen from our soil and the roots are not able to breathe because roots are not photosynthetic. There's no light underground. When they can't breathe, they suffocate. When the roots suffocate and die back, they're not able to bring nutrients into the plant, whether they're there or not. And we can see that reflected in yellowing leaves. So, are you overwatering? Let's find out. Does your soil dry out between waterings? If not, you're overwatering. Are your plant stems limp and soft and your leaves floppy? Do you see yellowing leaves, sometimes with spots and blotches on them? Is the crown of your plant rotting? Is your overall plant growth stunted? Are plants in your garden actually rotting and dying? Those are all signs of overwatering. They're not just signs of overwatering, but all together. If you see all of those, dude, lay off. Okay, that's crazy. If you've decided that, yeah, you're probably overwatering, here are some steps you can take. Just slow down your watering schedule. Let that soil dry out between waterings. Provide deeper irrigation with more water, but less frequently. And then also, always amend your soil with organic material to improve the drainage properties of your soil. And that's really all you have to do to fix an overwatering problem in your garden. Life is all about balance, so it's not a big surprise that the other extreme, underwatering, can also be a problem in a garden. And since yellow leaves are caused by anything that interferes with chlorophyll production, we're going to see yellow leaves with underwatering as well. Are your leaves dry and crunchy? When you dig down a few inches, is your soil dry? Are you seeing wilted plants that don't recover in the evening when things cool off again? Those are all signs that you may be underwatering your garden. So to compensate for that, you can make sure you're watering deeply and thoroughly. Sometimes we apply too much water all at once and we'll lose most of it to runoff. So it can feel like we're giving our garden plenty of water, but we're not. A drip system can slow that flow and make sure that the water we're applying to the garden stays in the garden. Slap a layer of mulch that's at least 2 to 3 inches deep, or this many centimeters, on top of your soil. The mulch is going to reduce evaporative loss of water from your garden and make it so that your soil stays moist longer between waterings without smothering your roots. Organic mulch is my favorite because it also helps amend the soil with organic matter over time. And that brings us naturally to, hey, amend your soil with organic matter. In addition to improving drainage, it also helps water retention. Organic matter in soil is magic. The reason overwatering and underwatering have the same symptoms, sort of, is that they both result in nutrient deficiencies in the plant. But the other big reason your plant could be struggling to access nutrients is that the nutrients are not there to access in the first place. Luckily for us, different nutrient deficiencies can have different sets of symptoms, so we can figure out what we need to add by looking at the leaves. Nitrogen deficiency is the most common one we're going to run into in the garden because nitrogen is the most important macronutrient for our plants. We need it to make DNA, we need it to make proteins, we need it to make chlorophyll. Those are all really important things if we want our plants to keep aliving. With nitrogen deficiency, we're going to see yellowing in the older growth first. This is because nitrogen is very mobile in the plant, so it'll pull the nitrogen from older tissue and move it to newer tissue so it can keep growing. Also, in the case of a nitrogen deficiency, we're going to see more even yellowing. And we can also expect, because we're not making those proteins we need, the overall growth of the plant is going to slow down. There are fixes to a nitrogen deficiency, and don't be surprised that all of them involve adding nitrogen. So if you have a soluble form of nitrogen, like a liquid fertilizer or urea or ammonium nitrate or something that you can add, that will boost your nitrogen right away. So if you need to get it in there quick, that's the way to go. However, these inorganic nitrogen sources are also going to be a lot more likely to burn your plants because it can be too much too soon. So be careful. Adding compost to your soil adds nitrogen along with trace nutrients and all the other macronutrients. Compost is a balanced fertilizer source. It will take longer to break down into the soil and give those nutrients up to your plants. A slow release fertilizer like blood meal can be added to your garden every 1 or 2 months. And that will, because it breaks down slowly, it's a lot less likely to burn your plants. I like blood meal because it also contains organic matter that can enrich the soil, and it adds iron as well because it's blood. Now, iron deficiency has its own set of symptoms. We actually see iron deficiency a lot here in Utah because our soil pHs are high. So with an iron deficiency, your younger leaves are going to turn yellow first because iron's a lot less mobile in the plant. You're going to see your yellowing localized to the areas between the veins. The tissue right by the veins is going to stay greener. If you have an iron deficiency because of a higher pH in your soil, I don't recommend trying to change your soil pH. It's really, really hard to do, and you're just going to end up with pH swings and misery. So instead, I would add a stabilized iron source to your soil. So that stabilizing that they've done to the iron is going to make it so it becomes unavailable more slowly because of that high pH, and maybe your plant's going to get some. Iron is also a lot harder to pull out of waterlogged soils, so you may be seeing iron deficiency as a knock-on symptom from overwatering. So just fix your watering schedule and that problem will go away. While fixing our soil pH is really, really hard and I don't recommend it, adding organic matter to our soil is not just relatively easy, it's also super important. And one cool thing that organic matter is going to do is going to lock up nutrients and keep them available longer. It does stabilize those nutrients naturally. So you don't have to, if you're like scared of chemicals, that's the way to go. Add more organic matter, it's magic. Now, magnesium deficiency can result in yellowing, again between the veins, in older or lower leaves on the plant. A tomato plant with magnesium deficiency is also going to show some purpling, but I grow some tomato varieties that are just naturally purple. If your soil is deficient in magnesium, and only if you know for a fact that your soil is deficient in magnesium, you can add Epsom salts to the soil. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Sulfate is great in soil, and magnesium is what you're deficient in, so no big deal. But the reason I would say only add it if you know you need it is because Epsom salt is a salt. And salt buildup in soil, especially in a climate like mine with low precipitation, has its own set of problems that we want to avoid. Plants and people aren't so different. As we age, our tissues break down. For a plant, it can be more efficient to just make new tissue than to keep repairing the old broken down stuff. And that can result in leaves turning yellow and falling off as they just get older. or at the end of the season all at once in a spectacular show of color. The plant is going to pull everything out of the old leaf that it can. They're pretty efficient little buggers and they don't want to waste any nutrients. And that includes recycling the chlorophyll from the leaf to break it down and make new good stuff. The natural pigmentation in the leaf that isn't chlorophyll is often mostly just made of carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, which the plant isn't so worried about. Chlorophyll contains a lot of nitrogen and iron and other important stuff, so the plant's going to pull that out. The other pigments, they can stay in the leaf. The plant may also pump a lot of its waste into the leaf. So in that sense, if a leaf falls on you, that tree just pooped on you. You got tree poop all over your yard. Now you got to scoop that tree poop. So that's why trees get so colorful in the autumn. They're doing all their pooping all at once. And it's gorgeous, gorgeous tree poop. Now that same process can also result in yellow leaves in our garden. If the plant looks like it's in overall good health and it's just one or two isolated leaves, or if it's the end of the season, a yellow leaf isn't necessarily a sign of something wrong with your plant. It's just a part of the natural plant processes playing out a lot more beautifully than when we poop. There are a lot of pests and diseases that can interfere with your plant's circulatory system and cause nutrient deficiencies that result in yellow leaves. We're only going to talk about a few of the most common ones because there are a lot. The four most common pests are aphids, whiteflies, spider mites, and root knot nematodes. Check the undersides of your leaves for the actual offending pests. Look for signs of little mite webbing on there if it's spider mites. Look for signs of speckling on the leaves or stem tissue where their sucking mouth parts might have penetrated and caused some tissue damage. You can also look for leaves with distorted growth because the plant's immune response can cause the leaves to kind of be a weird shape if they've been damaged by a pest. Root knot nematodes are not going to be so easy to detect unless you pull your plants out of the ground because they're underground where you can't see them. So you can control root knot nematodes with crop rotation. There is some evidence, but it's not 100%, that French marigolds do a good job trapping and killing root knot nematodes. So you can try interplanting with marigolds. Worst case scenario, you get a really pretty garden. You can also amend your soil with organic matter. Oh my gosh, it fixes everything, doesn't it? It's crazy. So in this case, the organic matter works by providing a substrate for fungi to grow on. And there are actually some funguses, amonguses, that will put little noose snares into the soil and trap and eat nematodes. It's kind of incredible. So that's how the organic matter is magic in this case. It's just magic in all the ways. It's so magic. So the most common symptoms that could show that your plant is diseased is if you see spots, primarily on your leaves, if you see actual mold growing on your plant, or if you see weird color patterns that are independent of the veins in your plant. You'll see a lot of streaking with bacterial infections or viral infections in your plant. Now, diagnosing and treating plant diseases is going to be outside the scope of this video. That's a whole other video series that I don't think I'm qualified to do, honestly. That's a lot. But we can talk about preventative measures to reduce the likelihood that your plants will be diseased. And I think that's the best treatment, really. Make sure you're watering at ground level with drip irrigation. A lot of pathogens just live naturally in the soil, and overhead watering can splash them up onto the leaves and make the leaves more vulnerable to infection. Drip irrigation eliminates that risk. Protect your soil with mulch. That mulch creates a vibrant ecosystem in your soil, which just naturally helps control disease. It also keeps the soil from splashing up onto your leaves. Space your plants or prune your plants to get optimal airflow between your plants. That's going to do a lot to prevent fungal infections and bacterial wilts. If you're struggling with diseases in your crops, rotate your crops. In a smaller private garden, like we're doing, it's not necessary to rotate crops unless it is. And diseases in our crops are one reason that can become necessary. If you have an ongoing problem with a specific disease, you can actually look for crop varieties that may be resistant to that disease. A really good example from my garden, this past year, I planted Mexicana zucchinis instead of my old zucchini variety. And that's because my zucchinis, and really only my zucchinis, had a big problem with powdery mildew on the leaves. And it didn't seem to hurt my production, but it was gross. I didn't love it. And so I got some Mexicana zucchini seeds. The zucchinis themselves are tasty. I didn't mind the change, and they had a lot less powdery mildew because they're a resistant variety. Leaf yellowing can also be caused by environmental stresses. So you'll see it after, or sometimes see it after a cold snap, or sometimes you'll see stress plants after high winds. If there's been a big stress event in your garden, avoid the temptation to increase your watering or hit them with some extra fertilizer, because that's just more your plants are going to have to deal with, and they're already dealing. Just let them, because if you keep poking them and prodding them while they're recovering from stress, they might just not, can't even, and then they won't. Now, if you have any questions about leaf yellowing that you don't feel like I answered in this video, please make sure you drop a comment with your question so that either I or another gardener can maybe help you out a little bit. It's quite possible that your questions could help out another gardener that's too shy to comment. Please like this video if you found it useful or entertaining. If you are enjoying this series on frequently asked gardening questions, make sure that you are subscribed to my channel because we are just getting started. There's going to be like 20 of these things at least, and it doesn't have to stop at 20. You can go ahead and frequently ask some more questions down in the comments, and I'll address those too. The next video in this series is going to be about how much light you need to grow food. I think that is definitely a very common question that gardeners are asking about. Thank you so much for joining me here in my garden today. I hope you have a wonderful time in your own garden.